anyway, this is pretty mainstreamed. This thing has been broadcast 10 times. So this little decision that the people of the marijuana movement reached in 1980, a couple people sitting around a table, led to this thing spreading all over the world. It's in South Africa, it's in New Zealand, Brazil, Argentina, Israel, Jordan, Iraq, Egypt, Greece, Spain, Portugal, the Netherlands. We have clinics in Canada and Mexico that people go to. There's only one little problem I think I should mention. Today, Lamar Smith of Texas introduced a bill that would make it illegal for me to conspire with you to get somebody that you know who's strung out on heroin or crystal meth or one of those addictive drugs and send them to Mexico to be treated. So they passed a law against, High Times Cannabis Cup, the Cannabis Cup every year. The High Times is a big promotion. It was like, I guess, predominantly designed to stop, drug tourism, people going down to Peru and taking ayahuasca. But it would also stop ibogaine treatment. And that will be a real tragedy if it occurs. I don't know how to switch up programs. If somebody can come up here and show me how to go into the PowerPoint. I'm going to do, I don't know how much time I have here.
Oh, 15 minutes.
Yeah, so I'm going to do this very, very fast. And I just want to kind of breeze over the stuff in the PowerPoint. Maybe Jim will give me 5 minutes too. Okay, so this is the plant. It comes from the root bark, the inner root bark of the plant. It has, you should understand, this has certain commonalities in brain pathways with cannabis. Cannabis also has some anti-addictive effects. I'll talk about that in a minute. That's the molecule. It's actually for 3 different molecules on the bottom. The one at the bottom is a complete synthetic that's been invented by people who work for NIDA to get around the objections that the National Institute on Drug Abuse has to the use of this, the natural plant medicine. Of course, they made a decision that back in the 60s that this was like LSD, and they never ever backtrack. They never ever admit they were wrong. So the main thing you could say about this is the first compound, ibogaine, is lipophilic. It goes into the body fat for a long time. It leaks out and turns into the second thing, which is metabolized. And there's about 4 different explanations about how ibogaine works. And in 15 minutes, I can't give all of them to you. But one of the main explanations that the government likes, the DEA had up on their website for a long time, is the second compound, noribogaine, which they think is like a substitute narcotic. Despite, being against addictive drugs, the system really loves maintenance drugs. They really want to keep you on methadone or Suboxone for the rest of your life. So naturally, they tended to think that somehow ibogaine must be like methadone. Even though, it's just not. Anyway, the important thing to know here is if you take the first thing and the second thing together from the bottom, serotonin and harmaline, that's ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is like weak ibogaine. Ibogaine, you only need one thing. It always works every time. That little thing on the right that looks like a porch in a house is a stimulant side chain that keeps you awake so that you can remember all the dreamlike experiences you would have. If you took harmaline, you wouldn't remember them unless you took the Viridis grass. These are like early treatments. Basically, the first treatment, first set of surveys, they weren't like clinical trials, were very small, but this is what they showed. Less than 2 months effect 29%, 2 to 6 months 29%, 6 months to the rest of your life combined 31%. When you understand that the most expensive therapeutic communities after 5 years have a 95% relapse rate 5 years after you get out of Hazelden or Betty Ford, 31% is pretty good. Now this is a much larger group of people. This is 400 people. The average clinical trial is only about 200 people. So when they say there's no clinical trials of ibogaine, what that means is nobody has paid to have a placebo-controlled trial where they gave, half the people ibogaine, half the people milk sugar. This just shows the dopamine pathway in the brain, it's from the VTA to the nucleus accumbens up to the frontal cortex. Now this isn't a rat having sex. It was a male rat. And you could see that, he did it for a little while and it jumped up, pleasure jumped up. He did it for a little while longer, he had an orgasm, and then he drifted off to sleep. But maybe they had 6 cigarettes. But the important thing with the dopamine is the dopamine used to be thought of as being the pleasure spot in the brain. Dopamine is about arousal. And when you think about sex, that makes a lot of sense. If you don't get aroused, sex is no fun. So you have to have arousal before you can really have sexual pleasure. And here, what happened is they gave a reward to a rat of fruit juice, which to a rat is like crack. And you see right after the surprise reward to the right, there's a spike. Well, what they did was they trained the rat with a light or a bell. And they paired the stimulus with the reward. So they always got the light or the bell before the juice. And lo and behold, the anticipation, the arousal, moved forward in time. It's like, you get it when you get the stimulus instead of the reward. And that is because this is a typical dopamine synapse. It's, where you have like a receptor and a thing that squirts, a squirter, right? And, what happens with these drugs is that it fills up the space between the cells with dopamine, either by blocking reuptake or by releasing it, which is what happens with crystal meth. And it blinds. It's like a flash of light. It blinds the receptor. There's some people, they get that, high from crack, and they can never get it out of their mind, right? And they always chase crack, trying to get back there. They never get back there. Okay, so I'm just going to breeze through this next part because the 18-MC is an experimental drug. These are the decreases in methamphetamine and nicotine. And you can see the methamphetamine is fairly good. But look at the nicotine. This is really going to be a godsend for nicotine because it's a lot safer than ibogaine. It goes down to practically nothing. The main drugs that are going to be treated are not going to be hard drugs. It's going to be alcohol and cigarettes. That's the main problem. We have a phenomenal number of people locked up, 3 cots and a hot, or 3 hots and a cot in the Wisconsin prison system for drunk driving 1 time too many, right? You get put under a order that you're not allowed to do alcohol at all, and if you screw up, they give you 2 years in prison. And there's a lot of people. This is as many people as are in prison for pot. Okay, this is by the way, is ethanol and ibogaine.